With complete coverage of the Utah Hockey Club, this is Cole Bagley of KSLSports.com on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Cole, you should see Ben today. It's gross. He's waving a Canadian flag. He's bouncing around. I mean, I honestly don't want to call him a traitor to the country, but kind of.
Well, I think at the end of the day, it was a great hockey game. It was just a masterpiece of, by the NHL to orchestrate a tournament like that. And yeah, of course, it would have been nice to see the United States, beat Canada twice in a week, especially in the game that hardware was on the line. But hey, at the end of the day, like I said, great hockey game, and I can't be too upset that Sidney Crosby was able to lift another trophy.
I thought it was a great opportunity, and I have not seen the numbers on what the ratings were last night, but I think they're going to be massive, to introduce a lot of people, myself included, to just who are some of the best stars around the world, who are the best stars around the NHL, and you get to hear what team they play for, and then when the Utah Hockey Club faces them, I will recognize them. I think that was a success for a layman like me, but someone like you, who's a hockey expert, you followed the NHL for a long time, you played in your career. What were your takeaways from the tournament?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest takeaway, was still along those lines of what you're talking about is, just the growth of the game. The fact that the NHL was able to differentiate itself from the other leagues and put together something really special during, a break in play, while the NBA struggles with, its all-star break and, other leagues like the NFL and MLB have not really been able to put something special together. The NHL was able to do that, and it was able to, grasp the attention of the sports world for, a week and a half and direct people to, just a phenomenal product. One of the most entertaining sports in the world, I think, is one of the biggest takeaways. And the second was, the return of best on best in international hockey was just so welcomed, to see NHL players putting on, their respective, home nation sweaters was phenomenal. To see these guys play at that level. It's interesting, right? Like all-star teams, kind of have an interesting narrative. But I think in hockey, it's just a little bit different. These guys really are able to come together as, groups and, put their differences aside from their clubs. I mean, they were talking about it last night. There were two guys, I can't remember who the one player was, but the other was Brad Marchand. These are two Canadians playing on the same line who do not like each other, who got into, arguments and fights, over the last couple of seasons, but they put their differences aside and they play. I think it may have been Sam Bennett, but they play on the same line and they find success and they help their country, bring home some hardware. So international hockey is back and better than ever before, which makes next year's Olympics very exciting, and the return of the World Cup of Hockey in 2028 as well, very exciting.
If the Utah Hockey Club is going to make a playoff push, it's got to mean a lot to have Durzi back, yeah?
Oh, it's huge. I've talked with a collection of guys over the last couple of days, Clayton Keller, Oli Mata, who Durzi was playing with heavily in practice yesterday, Kesselring, Josh Doan, and all of them have said, look, Durzi is an underrated player in this league. Obviously, he's more so known for his offensive skill set as a defenseman, but he's very reliable on the back end, and now you've got your number two defenseman back in the lineup. So, top to bottom, Utah's defensive core is as healthy and as talented as they have been all season. You've got, Sergachev and Marino on the top line. You've got, Cole and Kesselring, and then Oli Mata and Sean Durzi, filling out, those lines. That's going to really help this team make a legitimate push, with the amount of talent that they have on the back end. And, up front, Logan Cooley isn't far away from returning to the lineup either. So the break was very beneficial, arguably more for the Utah Hockey Club than maybe any other team in the NHL. And with 26 games to go and, just 6 points behind the wild card spot, the opportunity is there to make a run and make a push. So we'll see if they can do it.
From the people I've talked to who know the club better than I do, Durzi is one of the best guys, just like people to have around. Do you think they've missed, that type of personality that he brings?
Yeah. Bill Armstrong said that when they lost Durzi early in the season, they lost a part of, their heart. And it's tough. There's been stretches in games where they've really missed Durzi. And I was talking to Clayton Keller yesterday about that. And he said, yeah, he's a stud. He is one of the most well-liked guys in the locker room. And, when he's been dealing with injury, he's not been with the team for the majority of that time. And so now to have him back in the room and to have him on the ice, it's huge for this team. And I think, I look back to the home opener, when he was getting in a fight with one of the Blackhawks players that was messing with Clayton Keller. The guy was way bigger than Durzi, and Durzi definitely lost the fight, but it just shows kind of, I think, the personality of Durzi. He's willing to stand up for his guys. He loves, his teammates, and not only is he a strong presence in terms of his skill set, but his personality and just the person that he is.
So during this last part of the regular season, what teams, let's take a broad look at the NHL and specifically the West. What teams do you expect to kind of separate themselves?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, when you're looking at the standings, right now, obviously Edmonton, Vegas, and LA are kind of a little bit in a league of their own. Colorado has really started to separate themselves, and that's really, really tight. You get down into the teams that are fighting for a wild card spot. Vancouver is in that second wild card spot with 63 points. And then you go down a couple spots down to Anaheim, and they're still within that 10-point spread at 9. St. Louis is just a point ahead of them. Utah's 2 ahead of St. Louis, and then Calgary's 3 ahead. So that's what's, I think, really special about the National Hockey League is the fact that it's always tight. It's always 1 or 2 points separating who makes the playoffs and who doesn't. And so these games down the stretch are always meaningful. The collection of teams often is different. Like I said, the teams at the top, such as Edmonton and Vegas, Winnipeg has been on an absolute tear this season. Dallas as well has been playing really good hockey as of late. Minnesota's up there. So the West is really tough, but it's very tight when it gets into who's going to make up those last 2 spots. It's going to come down to that second wild card spot. I don't see Colorado really, giving that up. So we'll see what happens. But Utah's in a good place, and if they can win 4 out of these first 5 back and really close the gap on Calgary and Vancouver, it's going to put them in a good spot to have a legitimate chance to make a push.
Cole, if the NBA had its druthers, you would end up with the Lakers and the Mavericks playing in the playoffs, and then the Lakers would somehow find a way to play Steph Curry and the Warriors, and you would end up with a matchup that featured Boston and probably the Lakers. So what's a best case scenario for like the postseason for the NHL, and if some of the best storylines hit, what are they?
Oh man, that's a good question. And I think it's always ever changing. I think if you look at the Eastern Conference, what Washington, the Capitals, are doing this season is really surprising. They were a team that barely made the playoffs last year. They were out in the first round, and then all of a sudden we have had this, resurgence of Alexander Ovechkin. I mean, he's playing like he's suddenly lost, 10 years, or he's gained 10 years back on his life. It's like he's 10 years younger out there, and he's looking to break Gretzky's record. So, I think it would be a lot of fun to see, Washington really make a push. Maybe, Ovechkin breaks the Wayne Gretzky all-time scoring record and wins another Stanley Cup. And then, looking at the West, I think you want to get the matchups, it'd be fun if Utah got in and were able to play a team like, Vegas in the first round. I think, that's a rivalry that's kind of brewing with Utah, Utah's relocation and the proximity of Las Vegas. Edmonton is playing really well. Connor McDavid scored the golden goal last night. He's the best player in the world, and he still hasn't won a Stanley Cup. And so I think if you were trying to determine, who would be the most exciting matchup in the Stanley Cup Finals. I think Washington Capitals out of the East, and then, either the Edmonton Oilers or Winnipeg Jets out of the West. Winnipeg has not really been a competitive team for a long time. I don't think the Stanley Cup has gone to a Canadian club for over 3 decades. So that would be a lot of fun to see Canada, competing for a Stanley Cup for the first time in a long time. And as well, if Edmonton could come out and, Connor McDavid, maybe he finally gets over that hump. I kind of compare, McDavid to the early days of LeBron James where, he was obviously the best player in the world, but he just struggled to finally win a championship. It's kind of where McDavid is in his career. And so, can he get over that hump and really prove that he belongs on that Mount Rushmore of NHL legends?
Cole, thank you. We appreciate it. Keep up the good work.
All right. Thanks, guys. We'll talk to you next week.